thank God. Everybody can thank God. I don't care what it is. I don't care what type of religion or what your beliefs are. Everybody can thank God for His goodness. Just want to give honor to God. We'd like to also give honor to Bishop Levelton. He's not here, but I really appreciate. He's the pastor of the church. He is also a friend of the family, and he's just extended hospitality to us, and I just want to thank him for what he has done, and I really appreciate it very much. I also want to acknowledge and thank Pastor Bishop Dempsey. He was Mom's pastor. He wasn't able to be here. He had another event that he had already planned for and was unable to attend. That's the reason it has fallen on my shoulders. So I do ask for your prayers. But again, Pastor Dempsey, he is a pastor at heart. You know, some people, when you say in terms of being a pastor, they have a pastor's heart. They care about the people. And that's Pastor Dempsey. He was there. He came to visit Mother when Mother passed. He actually, when she had the stroke and she went into the hospital, he came to the hospital. When she passed, he came over to the nursing home to encourage the family. So we really thank him for all of his support. We want to thank the Greater Emmanuel Apostolic Temple family for all the hospitality you've shown. Fellow ministers, the motherboard, we want to thank you to all the family, saints and friends. And I just want to say that Sister Teresa Terry, I was talking to Preston, and I was telling Preston that, you know, we need someone that would be able to sing for the service. And so he called up Sister Teresa Terry, and she had another event, and I was very disappointed because, see, Preston told me, he said, this is the Alicia Keys of gospel. and so he said, well, the service isn't till around 11. She said, well, I have another one at 2 o'clock, so if we take too long, I'm not going to take that long, but if y'all take too long, she's going to have to leave. But she said, I can make it work. And I'm so glad you made it work. I'm so glad. And I want to also just take a moment and to give some insight into my mother, Juanita Crittenton. My mother was 1 month short of her 95th birthday. If she had lived to December 15th, she would have been 95. So for those, you're right, for those that play golf, there's a thing called a gimme. So if you take a putt and you hit the cup, but it kind of rolls out, you say, we'll give you a gimme. That means they'll give you credit for it. She was close enough, we give her credit for it. You live 94 years and you only miss it by 1 month, that's a gimme. There's a poem some of you may have heard, and actually it was my wife that shared it with me. It's called The Dash by Linda Ellis. And it says, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between the years. For the dash represented all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who loved them knew what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that still can be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more. Love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect, more often wear a smile. Remember that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash what you would be proud of, the things they say about how you lived your dash. To understand Mother, you have to know the people and the events and the circumstances that shaped her life. She was born, as I had mentioned, December 15, 1924, to the husband and wife of Andrew Freeman and Ada Ingram. Now, on the Ingram side of the family, that was her mother's side, her grandparents were Luther, and they used to call him Daddy Crease. And it was also, they called her Mama Ola. It was Ola Malone. Now, her great-grandfather, his name was Harrison Ingram. And Mother would talk to me about him, and he owned a lot of land in Rogersville, Alabama. And he had a chimney business. And when I found him in the census, he and his children could all read and write. So when you think about this, this goes back to, he was born in 1856. And Mother said she remembered that he had some peanuts that was on the porch. And her and Coot had gone up there, and Coot had taken some of the peanuts. And so Grandpa Harrison asked, who took the peanuts? And Coot said, Juanita, and ran off. But Mother said that he was very fair-skinned. So putting two and two together, I would assume he was a slave master's child, and that his parents or his mother was paid off with land. Now, on the Freeman side of the family, that was her father's side of the family. Her father, he had 3 brothers. So our grandfather was Andrew, and then he had a brother named Haywood, Charlie, and Sam. So when you think about Aunt Rosie here, we have Aunt Rosie here in Cincinnati. She was married to Hayward. And so they have all the children, and we refer to them sometimes as the Evanston or the Avondale Freemans. That's where they was from. Now, her grandparents was James Tuz Freeman, who married Lally Cunningham. And James Tuz, he had a brother, and his name was Ed. They called him Papa Ed. And that's where we refer to the Lincoln Heights Freemans. And so they come from Papa Ed. Now, the grandparents in terms of Andy Cunningham and Mary Bedingfield. So that was Lally Cunningham's parents. Her great-great-grandmother was, our great-great-grandparents was Meredith Bedingfield and Lucy Pikes. Now, Lucy, she was born in 1832, and she was a Cherokee Indian, and her Indian name was Finch. And she purchased over 170 acres of land in 1888. Now, they also owned land prior to that, but because she was an Indian, she was part of the Trail of Tears. So during the Civil War, they had a lot of the Indians to leave the South, and they went out to Oklahoma. And so they went out there, and when she came back, they only gave her a portion of her land back, but she purchased more land in 1888. Now Meredith, he was born a slave. So when Kim talked about the diversity of the family, it goes way back in terms of the diversity. So you think about the environment in which she grew up in, where on both sides of the family, they owned land. Land was a source of wealth during this time. Her aunts, her uncles, they could all read and write. She grew up in an ethnically diverse family, and her family and church was the most important part of her life. And that's the reason we grew up with a very close family, because that came down through the lineage. But what's most important to really understand mother is you have to understand what shaped her life. What were the circumstances that shaped her life? Now, her grandmother, Mother Lally, told her that her grandfather, Tuz Freeman, when he was on his deathbed, he told Lally, he said, "Lally, dying isn't hard. It's the small things that come to haunt you. Treat everybody right." And that was one of the principles, and everybody talked about how kind she was. That came from that influence. So it made her conscientious about how she treated people. Another event that happened in her life, when she was small, her grandfather, Luther, this is on the Ingram side of the family, they called him Daddy Creeks. He would tell her and her brothers and sisters to go to the store to buy shoes. They owned a land, so they grew all their food that they ate. So the only time they really bought something was something they couldn't grow. And she said that when they would go to the store, they would tell the store owner that Daddy Crease sent us down here and he said he'll pay you. And the store owner would say, if Daddy Crease said it, give them whatever they wanted. And so what that taught Mom, and what she taught us was, let your word be your bond. So if you say it, you let it be your bond. And she was that type of person. So when you talked about her integrity, it came from that experience. I remember when I was small, and I did a few things that were wrong, but we're not going to talk about it. I know Grady, Alfonso, y'all, Steve, the rest of y'all, just keep quiet. All right, but anyway, my mom would tell me, she would say, tell me the truth. She said, because I'm going to whoop you more for lying than what you did. So you might as well go ahead and tell the truth. So I really appreciated that. And she also would teach me about money. And again, she grew up around people who had money. And what she would always say is, I don't care how much money you make, save something. If you make $1, save 10 cents. But save something. And so to this day, I always save something. The other thing that she would teach me is being a gentleman. We would go down, we would go places, wherever we would go, she would always correct me. She would always say, a gentleman walks on the outside of the street, on the outside of the sidewalk near the street. So I would have to move over there. We would be going into the department store. This is when they had Shillitoes. We would get ready to go into the department store, and she would stop. And she would say, a gentleman opens the door. When we would go somewhere to eat, she would say, a gentleman pushed the chair in. When we would get ready to get in the car, a gentleman opens the door. To this day, it's automatic. I open the door, I push the chairs in, and I like to sit right there. It is because of my mother and what she instilled in me. The other event, and this was a major event that happened not only to my mom, but to her brothers and sisters. When she was 10 years old, she ended up losing her mother because her mother died giving birth to their younger brother, Sam. So she had to grow up quick in order to help Mama Ola raise the rest of the kids. So that's the reason some of her younger brothers and sisters looked at her almost like a mother than they did a sister. And this meant for her that she wasn't able to live just a normal childhood. She had to help cook. She had to help do the things that a parent would do. She would never have her mother there to teach her how to be a woman. I was thinking about that, to lose your mother at 10 years old, that you would never have a mother to teach you how to be a woman, how to be a mother. She would never have her mother at her wedding day, but she had to lean and start trusting on God to get her through that. Then another event that happened to her is that their house caught on fire. And when their house caught on fire, they had to go and live with some of the other family members. It was 10 kids. And so they had to go live with some of the other family members, and that's the reason they were very close to Uncle Luther Ingram in Cleveland and Aunt Rosie in Louisville. And one of the other things that with my mom is she married in 1942, and when she got married, my parents didn't have anything. And my dad's brother was in the military because World War II was going on. So he was away in the military. And his brother told them, well, you can live with my wife while I'm away and help you get on your feet. But my mom said that her sister-in-law was so mean to her that they ended up having to move out early. But again, even though she went through that, she learned to trust God and to get her through. She had the experience in 1943. She gave birth to her first child. And at that time, she was around 19 years old. And to think about that, you're 19 years old, you're giving birth to your first child, but you don't have your mother. And what she had to go through. But again, she was learning to trust in God. He was taking her through experiences to learn to trust him. Her second child died when he was six months old. That was Bernard. So again, for most people, as you know, there's no greater hurt or greater pain than losing a child. And she ended up losing the child when he was 6 months old. But again, she was learning to trust God as all the experiences that she was going through. The other experience that she had was that she lost 2 brothers at the same time. She lost Coop and Sam at the same time in a car accident. To think about that, I had lost both my brothers at the same time. And one of them, Sam, was almost like a child because she helped raise him into becoming an adult. But again, the experience that she was going through, God was teaching her how to trust him. Over the years, she lost grandparents. Think about 95 years. She lost grandparents, she lost aunts, she lost uncles, she lost a husband after 65 years of marriage. All of her brothers and sisters, except Aunt Jim, she buried all of them, and she buried 3 children. When you live for 95 years, there's a lot of hurts, pain, and loss that you go through. But through it all, you learn to trust God. You know, one of the things that came to my mind when I was thinking about my mom and everything that she had gone through, I thought about Job. We all refer to Job in terms of the suffering. But there was 3 questions that Job asked God. His pain had gotten so bad, Job asked God 3 questions. In Job 3:11, he said, why was I born? Think about it. You can have pain so bad, you ask yourself, why was I born? You know, it hurts so much. Almost like I wish I was never born. The other thing he said in Job 9:2, how can man be just with God? Am I being punished because I wasn't righteous enough? How can I be righteous? And then the third question was, if a man die, shall he live again? Job 14:4. So when Job asked these questions of God, what was interesting to me was that God's response was to ask Job questions. But the questions that he asked Job was really to say, Job, you need to learn to trust me. The first question that he asked in chapter 38, verse 4, he said, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? And can you tell me, Job, where is the foundation of the earth fastened? And who laid the cornerstone? He said, now wait a minute, what God was saying to him, Job, if I can lay the foundations of the earth, I can be your rock and your anchor in the midst of the storm. Then he said in verse number 8, he said, Job, who shut up the sea with the door? What he was saying, how big the ocean is, I make sure that when it comes to the shoreline, it stops. It doesn't keep going, it stops. He said, Job, if I can stop the ocean, I can heal you. All you got to do is learn to trust me. Then in verse 12, he said, hast thou commanded the morning since thy days and caused the day spring to know his place? What he was saying is, can you control the moon and the sun? He said, if I can control the moon and the sun, Job, I can give you a brighter day. Just learn to trust me, Job. In verse 19, he said, where is the way where light dwelleth? And as for darkness, where is the place thereof? In other words, he was saying, Job, if I can separate the day and the darkness from the light, I can make sure that weeping only endures for a night, but that joy will come in the morning. Just trust me, Job. Just trust me. Then in verse 28, he says, hath the rain a father, or who have begotten the days of the dew? In other words, Job, if I can create rain, I can remove the pain. If I can create the rain, Job, all you got to do is trust me. Verse 35, he said, can thou send lightning that they may go and say unto thee, here we are. In other words, he was saying, Job, if I can control lightning to obey me, I can change your situation. Then in verse 37, he said, who can number the clouds in wisdom? And God was saying, if I can number the clouds, I can order your steps. Just trust me, Job. Then in verse 41, he said, who provided the raven his food? God was saying, if I can feed the raven, I can provide your needs. All you got to do is trust me. And what was really interesting is in chapter 42, verse 5, Job responded to God. And what Job said is, I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes seeth thee. In other words, what Job was saying is, God, I heard about you from other people. But what I've been through, now I know you for myself. I don't have to somebody else to tell me how you take me through the valley. You already took me through the valley and brought me out. I know it for myself. I know that you are a healer because you healed me. I don't have to ask anybody else. You healed me. I know that you're a restorer because you restored me. And that's what I like when David came up to the Philistine. David said, well, wait a minute. If God delivered me from the jaws of the lion, And if God delivered me from the claws of the bear, he can deliver me from this uncircumcised Philistine. In other words, you don't have to tell me what God can do. I know it for myself. I know that God is a deliverer. So that's why my mother's testimony, if she was here, she would say, I know God is a healer, not because somebody else told me, but because in 95 years, I know it for myself. Mother would also just go on to say, I know God is a mother because I was motherless, but he was my mother. You don't have to tell me that. I know it for myself. I know that God is a comforter because all the loss that I've been through, God has comforted my heart. When I lost my mother, God comforted my heart. When I lost my children, God comforted my heart. When I lost my brother, God comforted my heart. When I lost my husband, God comforted my heart. You don't have to tell me who God is. I've been through the valley. I've been through the storm. I've been through the wind, but God was my anchor. Her testimony would be, you don't have to tell me, I know God for myself.
Hallelujah. Look at somebody say, you ain't got to tell me. I already know for myself. Wow. Wow. Somebody give God praise one more time. Come on, give him a real praise in the house. You know what? Let the enemy mad and just get up on your feet and somebody give God glory in spite of what you're going through. I know for myself, I think he put in the atmosphere, he's never failed me yet, and he never will. He never will. So while we're standing, as we prepare for, it's been a